Hello and welcome to the Say It Sister podcast. I'm Lucy and
I'm Karen, and we're thrilled to have you here. Our paths crossed years ago on a shared journey of self-discovery, and what we found was an unshakable bond and a mutual desire to help others heal and live their very best lives.
For years we've had open, honest and courageous conversations, discussions that challenged us, lifted us and sometimes even brought us to tears. Now we want to share those conversations with you. We believe that by letting you into our world, you might find the courage to use your voice and say what really needs to be said in your own life.
Whether you're a woman seeking empowerment, a self-improvement enthusiast, or someone who craves thought-provoking dialogue, join us as we promise to bring you real, unfiltered conversations that encourage self-reflection and growth.
So join us as we explore, question and grow together. It's time to say it, sister.
Hello, it's Karen. It's episode number 2 of the Say It Sister podcast. And I'm a bit nervous today because this topic is one that's close to my heart. Where are you at, Lucy?
Do you know what? I'm totally up for it, but I'm really aware that we need to take care of the people listening. You know, they're going to be in different spaces and places. And even when I was recounting some of the stories about my own personal safety, I realised, not ready to talk about that one just yet. Because again, we're all in different places when it comes to when we have felt unsafe, and we do hold that. And I'm also really aware that my daughters, who are, almost, well, they are young women, they will be listening. So again, I'm excited, I'm up for it, but also careful. That's the word.
Yeah, I hear you, sister. And this is probably one of the hottest topics that is out there at the moment, and it's affecting all of us all around the world. And we want to talk about personal safety today and feeling safe in our own bodies during a time when violence against women and girls is at a high. I actually have a frog in my throat already, and I can feel that there's a lot going on in my body. This podcast is a trigger warning for anyone who may be going through something. It's also an opportunity to talk about the key issues that face women today, and we want to do that in a safe way. We also want you to know that if you are struggling with anything, there will be details provided where you can have open and safe conversations with others. We're going to go deep today.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm feeling it in my heart already. It's like, oh, so it is deep.
And we've always got a message, haven't we? Because we really, really work on that. And, when we are alerted to not feeling safe, I think it's so easy to ignore that energy and to think, maybe I'm paranoid or I'm making it up, or what, I feel uncomfortable, so I'll just ignore that feeling. And being ignorant in the world today, is not bliss, actually. We do need to know what's going on, and we need to be able to talk about it and actually create solutions for ourselves that will really, really help us to, still be out in the world.
Yeah, do you know what? It does feel really deeply unrestful at times. And, like the statistics are there. I think when we were younger, there were no statistics. But now people are measuring and reporting on what's really going on out there. And it almost validates the feelings that so many of us have had for years. In fact, my whole life experience has been one of not feeling safe, even though I didn't know it. It just was part of how to be a girl or how to be a woman. And now, because we've got this data and the news reports, social media platforms where other people are sharing their stories, it feels like that it is an unrestful time, but it's also not just now. When we look back at all the stories over our history and, for centuries, it's actually always been this way for women.
Yeah, it's deeply unsettling, and I'm with you. I've never felt safe in my body up until the last couple of years because I've been doing deep work, and we can talk about that in a bit. But we are brought into a space and time where there is so much going on in the world, and where women's bodies are being controlled on many different levels. And if you look at what's happening in the UK at the moment, we've got these awful statistics coming out. It's been called by the police as a time of emergency. We've got shocking statistics. We've got women being harassed, stalked, sexually assaulted, domestic violence. The stats are saying that it's up by 37% in the past 5 years, and the perpetrators are getting younger. And there's 2 million women a year estimated to be victims. I also saw something today that said that, 2.5 women are killed per week in the UK. And it's like it stops me in my tracks in a way, and it's very hard to feel positive when you know that this sort of thing is happening out there to a sister, not just in the UK. It's this is happening everywhere, but we do need to talk about it.
Yeah, do you know what? One of my earliest coaching contracts, so it must be 9, 10 years ago, I was doing some stuff for an NGO, and it was helping trafficked women who'd arrived in the UK to heal. So they'd been rescued, but that was only the start of the healing journey. And it actually really made me ultra aware of what's happening globally to our sisters around the world. And, where they're being used as weapons of war, for trafficking, child exploitation. And only, I think it was yesterday, it was over the weekend, I was chatting to an old school friend who posted some video about why is it only men who are being claiming asylum or refugees. And I shared with her that actually it is safer for the women and the children to remain in the refugee camps because, and even though that's not a great place to be, it's still safer than going on this journey where they are basically seen as prey. And my eyes became really opened in my early 20s when my best friend's mother started fostering. And one of her first children, and she was now 17, she arrived, yeah, 17. She'd been dropped off at the Birmingham airport unaccompanied. And that basically the story was that as a 16-year-old, she was involved in a children student protest, and they'd all been arrested, these children, and thrown into prison without trial. And when they were there was systematic rape of these young girls. And because one of them, this girl, became pregnant, she was now a liability because it was an all-women's prison. So it was obvious what had been going on. So they bought a plane ticket, accompanied her to the airport, said, I'm just going to the toilet, you wait here. And then they went through the exit, got on another plane and went back. And there she was, this poor girl who'd already been away from her family and now in a country alone after, horrific trauma. And thankfully, she found refuge with my friend's mother, who was a wonderful woman. And now her life is in the UK looking after this child. And it just, yeah, it opened my eyes to the pain that women are experiencing everywhere. And that might sound extreme, but there are acts of violence, like you say, stalking, harassment, walking down the street being catcalled,
Yeah.
which when that happened to my 13-year-old daughter, and how upset she was and how worried she was about going out again, it just brings it all home. And so, yeah, there you go. My 13-year-old experiencing male violence, harassment, sexual assault. And it's just an old story that's, it's just now entering our world because we're talking about it. We didn't talk about it. And on the other side of that, they're becoming really, really aware of this rhetoric coming from the young boys in their colleges, in their schools. And, the police chiefs are now calling it, a real concern for radicalisation by online influencers. We all know the name Andrew Tate, but we had this debate, this conversation
Oh,
online on LinkedIn, didn't we?
we did. And you know what? It's deeply upsetting. The funny thing is, I remember being at school, and because I developed so early, I couldn't walk into certain parts of the playground because if I did, I knew that the boys would jump on top of me and try and unhook my bra, and this is like, in the first year of high school. So, I was 10, 11. And I just learned how to sort of try and avoid those spaces. I never really spoke up about it. I would obviously tell them to get off me, but I didn't go to the teachers and say, hold on a minute. I think things will probably be done differently now. And, that did leave an imprint. And these boys were quite nice boys, actually. They weren't awful boys. But that's what they were doing because, well, it was fair game. And I had, I had breasts and I had a bra on, and they just wanted to have a bit of a go, really. And, I don't think they could have known what to do with anything, really, to be honest. But it was deeply, deeply uncomfortable. And I had to avoid that. for many years until eventually I think they grew up a little bit. But and then on the other side of it, I'm remembering being pregnant when I was 42 and, you know, being with my dad in the car and these guys in a van shouting and leering, going, they didn't realize I was pregnant, but I was quite big by then. You know, and making lewd comments whilst my dad's sort of driving. And I just, you know, thinking, God, 10 years old, 42 years old, you know, it still happens. And I think
Yeah.
as you get older, you think, oh, you're not in the line of fire as quite as much, but it is still happening. And so as women, you know, there is like an awareness of protect yourself throughout, you know, take care of yourself throughout. You know, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit here, but it came up. I was like, I just need to share this because it
Yeah.
kind
And
of
you know
doesn't
what?
stop.
It's a tiny act that, you know, we probably wouldn't have spoken about because we were 9, 10, 11, 12. Tiny little acts like that. But actually, here we are as grown women
Yeah,
and we remember them like they were yesterday. They're still there. They're still in our cells and in our memories. This stuff doesn't leave us. And it does shape the women that we become and how we go out there in the world. And it's that part that you were speaking of about, you know, never really feeling safe in your body. And it is really hard to talk about. And whether we're having dialogue with our male friends, actually with our sisters, with our parents, or actually out there on social media when we're talking about this stuff, it is really hard because we do get these people saying, oh, just, you know, it's a load of rubbish, or what about men, and all those whataboutisms that come up. And often I try to just remove myself when it starts getting into a debate where they are just not listening and they're trying to power over, talk over me, throw loads of data and stats and all this kind of stuff at me. I just remove myself because I'm thinking they don't actually want to engage. They just want me to be wrong. They want to hold their position, whatever their position is. So what I tend to do is, just like you have there, I tend to turn to real stories, real, you know, whether it's first person testimonies, that's my own story, my own lived experience, because it's those stories that seem to make a difference. They can't tell me I'm wrong when it's my story, because no,
absolutely.
this is my story. And you know what? It's for me, it's about not trying to fight them and throw more stats and more news reports at them. It's about actually bringing my feminine energy to solution because I've tried using my masculine energy and it doesn't work. So instead, I turn to sharing, speaking, listening, telling stories, the whole purpose of this podcast. Because, yeah, bringing that masculine energy, it just makes it hard. And I know I feel unsafe and I don't want to be shut down anymore. So, yeah, as a mother, you know, we both have girls. I think it's now our time to really speak our truth and encourage others to do it, to say it's sister. So I just want to take a moment just to share a story that I used to read to my children when they were little, and now I refuse to read it to them. So I now read the new the new story of Little Red Riding Hood. As you know, as women, we're reclaiming the stories that actually our medieval ancestors were sharing as a warning, as a guidance to women, because it was not safe in those times either. And we all know the story of Red going into the woods, which were symbolizing the outside, unsafe, unknown, going to see her elder, her grandmother. And along the way in this world that is unfamiliar to her, she is approached by a wolf or a huntsman, whichever story, and they're trying to entice her off the path. They try lying or manipulating, whispering sweet nothings, trying to befriend her, but trying to take her off her course. And it's the old stories like this that actually we've kind of forgotten because we've turned it into a ladybird book. But actually, it's always that whisper of mothers, grandmothers, aunts saying, "Be wary when you go out there." And there's this beautiful little passage or poem I want to read the end of. Wolves may lurk in every guise, handsome they may be and kind, gay and charming, never mind. Now as 'tis the simple truth, sweetest tongue has sharpest tooth. And that story was updated by the Grimm brothers to have the poor girl saved by the huntsman. There goes the patriarchy again, telling us that only men can protect women from other men. And in fact, the lesson in the story is listen to your intuition, be aware, And what I now know to be true is actually our intuition is actually our greatest source of power to protect us.
100%. I mean, there's so many things I want to say about this. I feel like, really, there's so many things to say that I can't actually think of what I actually want to say. I'm
It
almost
often
like,
happens.
it's that flattery piece. It's the
Mm.
flattery that is the most dangerous. So when we are approached and someone's very flattering, and also the separation piece, if somebody has bad intention towards you, they're going to try and separate you away from a group. We do need to hang out together, take care of each other, listen to our own intuition, and put things in place that safeguard us. And at the same time, it's just to be really, really wary of that. Because for me, if somebody's nice to me, I feel like I have to be nice back.
Yeah.
And I'm learning now as a 48-year-old
Come on, Karen, smile.
that that's actually not in my service at all. I need to be more fierce, and protect my space and just be very, very clear, give very, very clear signaling, and let people know that when they invade my space, that's not permitted. So this has been something I've learned a lot later on in life. And it's certainly something that, I'm working with my daughter, who's only 5.5, to really support her to actually listen to what's going on in her body. It's a difficult one when they're so young, because all I can do is get her into her body and get her to listen to her body. However, as we get older, there's many more things going on. And I think that clear signposting from within ourselves is the only way we can stay safe, really.
Mm.
I was also thinking about this idea of like what's actually going on when, we have our intuition, we have our wisdom, it's been alerted to something, and then our brainstem will wake up. And this is when we go into the survival response, and we're in fight, flight, freeze, fall asleep. And for me, like understanding what goes on in my brain has actually really helped me, because when I start to feel a sense of panic or confusion, or I'm uncomfortable, I'm like, something's been triggered here. My brain has been alerted, and I've got a range of things that I could do. And I've learned to just understand that I'm triggered. I think that's number one, the first thing to say. Something's going on. There's been a shift in energy. There's been a change in my body. There are feelings now, and my brain is engaged. And at that point, there's a range of things that I could do. But
I fall asleep.
what tends to happen for all of us is that we have this like pre-programmed response that we tend to go back into. So, it's worked for us before. There's a reason why we go back to it. And yet it's not the right one to choose. And that fall asleep piece, that, disassociation or numbing out, because we've had pain before, or something's happened to us. And we go, well, I'll go there because then I'm not present in my body, and therefore it won't be as bad. That's the worst thing that we can actually do, is what I have learned through my own personal and professional journeys. Actually, we need to stay awake. We need to stay awake. We need to have our wits about us, and we need to have different solutions that we can go, actually, fall asleep's not the right one here. Let's choose something different. But we've got to be reading the situation as well. So there's already a lot in this space. The only thing that we can do is respond to what's happening in the moment.
Do you know what? It's interesting, because as you were talking, I was reminded of those again, the wolf speaking, of when I've had concerns, or I've started to look worried or shifty, and I've heard that male voice say, no, it's fine, don't worry your pretty little head about it, or things like that. And actually, every time I've gone against my intuition is when bad things have happened. But every time I've listened to my intuition, whether that's crossing the street, or phoning a friend, or going into a busier shop, things like that, just those little tiny acts that we do when we listen to our intuition, every time they've saved me, and no harm has come to me. And I'd love to share loads more stories, because I have got so many, not just about where it saved me, but equally where it didn't.
Absolutely. That's just exactly what I was thinking about, is the times when I didn't listen, and it, where I was just in a pothole, really. That's what it feels like inside my body anyway, of just, oh my God, how did I get here? How do I get out of this? This is not what I'm wanting right now. And the difficulty that comes with that, and the struggle and the fight that happens internally whilst we try and work out what to do. And then
the blame that we put on ourselves afterwards, for not listening to our gut. And then that's where we carry that kind of shame, because then we berate ourselves when actually we haven't perpetrated against ourselves.
Absolutely not. And I feel like, for me, like when I was sexually assaulted in 2017, there was many signs that day that something was not right. This was by a man I knew very well and trusted. And there were many, I can put it right down to the moment when I opened the door, you know, and the hug that he gave me. There were all these signals and signs that made me feel uncomfortable in my body. And yet I didn't listen to those signs because actually it didn't make sense to me because this was someone that I knew so, so well. And we were in a group and it was a wedding and different things were happening. So for me, it was like, something was alerted me, yet I didn't really have the skills that I have now, shall we say, so many years later, after all the work I've done to heal and to sort of really get back into my own power. I'm a very different person now because of that situation. You know, I've learned so much and I've really learned how to sort of stay in my power actually. And when I'm not feeling it, what to do about it. And, you know, when I need to get out somewhere, that's okay. And to use my voice. So that all these skills have sort of followed in. But in that situation, it was too late for me in a way, because whilst I'd done a lot of empowering work, I had never faced something like as strong as this before in the way that it was, you know, the way that it happened to me. So I had to, yeah, I went into the old defunct, you know, basically lost my voice, didn't know how to speak, all of that. And that saddens me today. And at the same time, it was a survival response to something that I just, in that moment, just didn't have the power to deal with.
And you know what? I can just imagine so many of the listeners thinking about a time where they felt uncomfortable, but they were at a family gathering, a party, out in public, and didn't want to cause a fuss or didn't want to mention anything in case it was nothing and they
Yeah,
were making a mountain out of a molehill, so they just dismissed it. And I can guarantee you, every single person listening has been in that situation at some point where something was off, but they didn't act because they didn't want to cause a fuss.
absolutely. And there's just so many layers to it, you know, and we're not going to get into all of that today. As we go through, you know, our series, there'll be different things that are going to come up and different learnings. I think the most important thing for me was to address what had happened and to acknowledge what happened, because I don't think you can heal or actually get over anything if you push it down, pretend it doesn't happen, suppress it, or take the blame for it as well. So this has been, you know, such a part of a cosmic awakening for me that has actually taken me into a place of trusting my body again, listening to my body, using my voice, saying it, sister, you know, in ways that I couldn't have done before. You know, they always say that there's something gross, you know, like the lily is like comes out of the stagnated water, you know, and
Yeah.
the disgusting, like, you know, I mean, I'm laughing here, but something can happen that is
Mm.
awful. And at the same time, you know, if we are kind and caring to ourselves and we take the relevant next steps each time and we keep doing our own personal work and we get help, we can still be that beautiful flower on that stagnated water.
And I think you've landed a really key point there. Get help. And it doesn't matter where that help comes from, but it is a deeply personal journey to do this healing, but it's so much harder when you're doing it alone. So whether it's talking to an expert, a charity, your best friend, your mum, whoever it is, yeah, lean into our sisters. It's such a fallacy that sisters are against one another and we fight, because that is not my experience. Every time I've reached out for help, I've found somebody. And it's really interesting talking about when we feel unsafe in our bodies or when it all started. And do you know what? I remember watching TV back then when we had VHS recorders and things like that, and you actually had to press the fast forward button. But if every time a sexy scene came on a movie, my mum would always fast forward it. And there was just this real
Yeah.
moment of awkwardness or kind of like shame that, oh no, we can't go there. And it was almost like kind of like Victorian purity, Puritan, the word, trying to come out. And but it taught me from a really young age, even that signal, we don't talk about this stuff. That's shameful. That's not for your eyes, Lucy. We don't do that. And yeah, I felt really unsafe even in that moment, because although nothing had happened to me, I felt this feeling inside that, oh, I'm not safe to be in this sexual world. But then it didn't give me the skills to be able to deal with these things. And and then we had a chat about when was the first time I felt really unsafe. And I think the first time I actually really did feel properly unsafe and I didn't know how to get out of it as such. I was only 13, 14, and we were on a summer holiday. and we happened to meet up with some kids from our school. And one of the evenings, my mum let us go to the clubhouse with this other family who were quite friendly with the staff there. And one of the staff, it's nothing as romantic as Dirty Dancing, which on so many levels is wrong now I think about it. But it literally was like a Dirty Dancing kind of scenario, because this older guy took me to the back of the old clubhouse. And I can't remember how. It was like the wolf taking me outside. I can't remember how I ended up there, but I was like 13. I was a child. And that was how I had my first kiss. And I hated every moment of it because my whole body was tense. I knew I just needed to get away. And I did. And I remember saying, my brother is probably looking for me. I need to go inside. And do
Yeah.
you know what? I didn't tell anybody about that up until a few years ago, really. And it was interesting because after that, my mum kept saying to me, "Do you want to go back down the clubhouse?" And I would make every single excuse about why I didn't want to do it or why I wanted to stay in. And then, interestingly, I there was another boy that I met there who was my age, maybe a year older, and we ended up having a nice little holiday age appropriate romance of maybe holding hands.
Uh-huh.
um, and that was the story that I took back to my friends and to the world about, oh yeah, I had a lovely summer romance, but I was too ashamed to talk about that moment when I felt so unsafe because we don't talk about this
It's the
stuff.
things we hold inside us and we then stuff it down and bury it.
Mm,
And I think,
I did. I buried it for years. Yeah.
yeah. What would your current self say to that young girl, a young 13-year-old now?
You weren't safe, your gut instinct wasn't right, and actually, you should have reported that to your parents because my God, they'd have gone down to that clubhouse and make sure he doesn't do that to any other child.
Yeah,
So that would be the advice. Like you weren't safe, you were right. Don't and you didn't do anything wrong. Um,
absolutely.
and then I'd give her a big hug.
Yeah. Because it's like that, this is the thing, isn't it? Like we carry those little ones inside us and they come around with us. And when they feel like they're not being heard or that something is triggering in the moment, they wake up and they start to speak. And we need to listen to those little parts of ourselves. But we need to do it from the adult place, the grown up to say, hey, it's okay. I'm gonna take good care of you and I'm listening to you. And this is what we're going to do about this situation. So please trust me. It's like this constant building of like inner trust. And I think when so many things happen over the course of a lifetime where we didn't have the skills, we weren't prepared, no one had the proper conversations, we didn't know how to get out of situations. We'd been told some of the wrong things like smile, be kind, be
Yeah.
nice, all of that stuff that we all get told on every single level. We just weren't prepared for it. But now we are prepared for it. And now we've got things that we want to say and things that we want to do, things that we want to share. But we've got
Yeah.
to take care of the little ones inside of us as well.
And you know what? I think certainly in my circles, and I know in your circles, we are talking about it more. And part of it was the Sarah Everard case, and the other part for me was when Me Too movement started. And I remember having conversations with a lot of women at that time, and every single person had a story that they'd never ever spoken about. And most of them had several stories.
Yeah.
And once we created that safe space that they could just share, or if I volunteered to go first to show that leadership of, this happened to me, then that it would give them the space to be able to say, yeah, that happened to me, or something similar happened to me, or my sister, or somebody in my town that I know. And that was a real turning point for me. What was
Yeah.
it, 7, 8 years ago?
Sarah Everard, 2021, and yeah, I was deep in my own healing journey. And when she was murdered, I remember it like it was yesterday. I literally I went to my knees almost. It gave me a space to do some more grieving. But at the same time, some of the conversations I were having, not all were good at the beginning, like conversations like, well, what was she doing walking across that,
Yeah.
park on her own? And there must have been more to it than that. And, and I,
And she could have gone to the police. And
do you
in
know what
the
I
early
mean?
days, that was the comment. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously she was killed by a police officer again. It's like that kind of the system is not fully on board for women yet, and we have so much work to do in that domain. And you know, when I, after my assault, I didn't go to the police, and I tortured myself for a while, quite a few years, thinking, well, maybe I should report. And when I thought about it, I was like, actually, there was so much going on in my life. I decided not to report, and I didn't think I would get the right support at that point. And I was, you know, I had PTSD, and I was like, I am not strong enough to go down this line. So I didn't report. But it's just that reminder that there is so much that does need to change to support women to, you know, go and report things and to speak up. Because whilst it's very easy to say, well, we need to speak up and talk about it, if it doesn't feel safe for us to do so, if we're not sure of the response we're going to get, then we're going to stay quiet. And we're going to stay quiet for a long, long time until eventually we probably can't stay quiet anymore. And then it kind of comes out of us in different ways. And I've had those experiences too. But yeah, she was, it was a moment in time, I think, when it just made me stop a little bit and actually have other conversations with people and say it wasn't her fault, you know. And the story as it unfolded was deeply distressing because this was a man in power.
Yeah. And I'm just really curious that it took you to a place, but here you are today talking about it. And how safe do you feel now?
Yeah, you know, I feel more safe than I probably ever felt in my entire life because I trust my body and I trust my signals, and I have done enough practice at this point and healing to be able to go, if there's a situation, if I catch it in the beginning, I've got a really, really good chance. And I've got a really great, you know, I do live my life differently now. And I have put a lot of procedures and measures in place, I suppose, that mean that I'm different. You know, it has changed me on multiple levels. I'm very conscious about where I go, who I go with. You know, yeah, I definitely live a much more insular life than I did before. I've got a smaller circle of friends. I'm very conscious about who those people are. I hang out with mainly women, I have to say it.
Mm.
And however, in the last couple of years, more men have been arriving again. And, you know, I feel comfortable and happy to be able to be, you know, friends with men and have, you know, good relationships with them. So that shows my level of healing again. It's like, I think we go through these things and we kind of go into our bubble and we do the work we need to do. And it takes a long time. And I don't think we should rush through, you know, trauma. I think we have to sort of, you know, like unfold it step by step with different guides, different people. And people leave at the same time, people who can't be around that or don't want to have those conversations. And that's all part of I'm going to call it leveling up that we have to do, you know, to not stay victims, but to actually realize that we have a choice. We're powerful now. One of my favorite sayings that I say to myself when I feel scared, I wasn't powerful then, but I am now powerful now.
Yes.
Now I know what to do. And I know that my instincts are right. So I feel very, I have moments, but I have moments and then I know what to do about them. And that's where my power comes back. So it's a great
You
question.
know, one of my so yes, I've had that physical feeling of unsafety. But I was in a really toxic relationship, which was all around emotional abuse, and that took me so long to heal from. And yeah, I do feel safe now because I do feel powerful. And your experience is so similar to mine in the sense that first I had to find the support from my sisters, from other women, and then bit by bit, I started allowing myself to feel safe around men, and inviting them into my world again. But I am now armed with what we call the red flags. So it's again listening to your intuition, just noticing how something has been phrased or how somebody acts in a certain situation. And so I feel really powerful now, equally. But there's also something that, you know, some wisdom that I tend to share with my daughters, because I hope they will never go through this stuff, but I know that they will. It's almost a certainty based on data and personal experience. But I always say to my girls, if something doesn't feel right, then it isn't. It's non-negotiable. It isn't right. So listen to your intuition. And interestingly, through this, my girls both feel their anxiety or their intuition, their feelings in different parts of their body. So my youngest feels it in her gut. And she used to say to me, "Oh, Mummy, I think I'm going to be sick. And it was usually because she was going into a new circumstance that didn't feel right. My eldest carries the weight of the world on her shoulders. And literally, when she doesn't feel safe, her shoulders rise and she holds that position. And other people feel it on their backs, in their heads, in their jawline. So it will come somewhere. If you notice you're in a situation, you're suddenly clenching your teeth, it's a signal. So find in your bodies where you feel it, because it is a signal. Um, and yeah, notice what those whispers. So try and calm your mind so you can listen to what that intuition is saying. And often it's you're not safe, or be alert, be aware. But while you're trying to drown out that, you can't listen to it. So you need to find a way to really tune in. I also say to my daughters, know that you have agency in any situation. So you have the power to yell, scream, walk away, smile until you exit, go to the bar and say, I'm not feeling safe now. Whatever it is, they have agency at all times. And then I hadn't realized I had to really speak this, because growing up, we just had the girl code. So I'm really re-educating what the girl code is. And it's things like you never leave a friend behind. Or if a friend says she's not feeling safe, you're there, you're surrounding her, you're right by her side, and you do what you can to support her. And even now, our my daughters, if they're sending their friends off in a cab, they take a picture of the license plate. Little things like that. They never leave anybody behind. And this is the ultimate girl code. And we want our allies to be on this as well. So there's little things like this that we all need to be educating others around. And it's not because um, it's, yeah, I don't want to be pessimistic, because there are a lot of good people out there in the world. But in my lifetime, it's not going to get any safer. And so yeah, education is really part of this, and that's what we need to do for our daughters, educate them.
Absolutely. And to be able to listen to our feelings, because in all of those feelings, there is information. And so when it's confusing, it's because when we feel confused, it's because actually what's happening is confusing. And it's really important for us to go, hold on a minute, I'm confused because this is confusing to me. And there is information here. Because actually, if we feel safe and we're in a safe place, we should feel open, we should feel free, we should feel like, we can use our voices, we can go where we want to go, we can dance, we can move, all of that is what we want to be able to do. And if we don't feel it's in the space, we don't feel like it's there for us, what else is there? What is the other stuff that's there? Do we want to be part of that, or do we want to distance ourselves and, take a taxi home or whatever it might be, or just say to a friend, this isn't a safe place, I'm not feeling it tonight.
You know what? That's a really good pulse test almost, because everyone listening to this will have had that experience where they feel completely safe, where they can just dance and laugh and play and just be their ultimate selves. And every single one of us knows where we feel that, like, don't show off too much, don't play full out, because you'll draw attention to yourself, because now is not the safe time. So yeah, I invite the listeners to think about, where is it when you feel at your safest? And where have you also been in situations where you've had to play small, to almost be invisible, so you're not in eye shot or earshot of somebody who may do you harm?
Absolutely.
Well, we've only really scratched the surface of this, and it's a complex topic. Um, but I feel that we've done a really good job of just opening up the conversation. And we're going to keep continuing with these themes, aren't we? So please keep listening. And if you feel like you need to share, or it's your time, you can find the words to speak about something that's happened to you. Please, you can, we will be here. You can DM us, and you can get in contact with us at the Say It Sister Safe private Facebook group. But you can also contact many different support services who have got experts who are trained in giving you the support that you need. And we are going to post those on the show notes and equally in that Facebook group, because we We don't want you to be alone. And equally, we know that today might not be the day that you want to talk about it, but at some point you will.
Absolutely. And I just want to add into that speak as quickly as you can, because the quicker you speak up, the more down the line you can get in terms of getting the support that you need. So whilst you'll want to be quiet, you'll want to process it, if you can share it with at least one person, it will really help you to get support quickly and not suffer in silence like so many do. So I just want to say that. I also want to say, if you lock your back door, if you hold your keys in your hand, if you cross the road when you feel unsafe, keep doing those things. You're listening to something that's inside you. Please do not ignore it, because this is the way that you can take your power back. Next time, we're going to talk about how to build personal safety in a world that is evolving and often feels extreme.
So thanks for listening, and we can't wait to welcome you next time.
Until then, use your voice, journal, speak or sing out loud. However you do it, we hope you join us in
Saying It Sister.